Hello there and welcome. Today we're doing another Star Wars Shatterpoint battle report, and this one's a special edition because it's going to be the final from the recent Evergreen Open at Dragonflight Con, and we have Geoff with us, who goes by Moosebacca on Longshanks and Discord, and he actually won the tournament. So it'll be interesting to hear his insights on the game and the list, and maybe a bit about the kind of meta that was happening at that tournament. So, welcome, Geoff.
Yeah, Dylan. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming to the event and recording games the whole time, and then making the time for me to be able to come on your cast and share sort of my takeaways from both our meta and this specific matchup. Um,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
it was actually you reached out first that this might be a cool idea. So I appreciate that and your time.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, I should give a shout out to Izzy, who was the head organizer of
Hmm.
all of the GTS there, and yeah, he was great to coordinate with, for allowing me to set up to record. He had uh, no issues with that at all, and helped me find a spot with a plug and all that stuff. So
Yeah, Izzy was fantastic, and Evan too. Our head judge was also excellent, and
yeah, for
I
sure.
really liked how well run everything was, and the structure and the clarity of the communication. It was all really good.
Yeah, great. Uh, so yeah, I made it to the top eight and got knocked out. Uh, Geoff obviously made it further, but it was interesting looking at the top four because three out of the four players actually had Kanan in their list, but they were pairing them, each of them pairing them with different people. So Geoff, he's got the top team paired with Princess Leia, charming to the last. I think Donovan is the one on the other side with the Empire list, and he played his dad in the top four, who was running full specters. And then uh, Doctor Huge was the other one. He was doing Kanan and Mando. He was the one that knocked me out.
Yep, yep.
So maybe that's a good time to go on to your list and maybe why you picked the the team that you picked.
Sure. Yeah. So, this is obviously a premier event, and so you have to take two squads. I'm a pretty firm believer at this point in taking two distinct lists. I think Empire is probably the only faction that can mix and match really effectively. CIS has a chance at doing that. But I really like Leia as a character. I've always liked her in the movies. My mom was the one who introduced me to sci-fi as a kid and Star Wars, and so I always have had an affinity for the sort of badass female leaders. And as you'll remember, Dylan, from our monthlies, when Ewok Leia came out, I immediately
Mm-hmm.
got them, brushed, painted them, put them on the table, played in a tournament with them, and tried my best to figure out a way to make them good. And I actually have a new Ewok list. I don't think it's as good as this, but it is a fun list. And when this Leia came about, I really wanted to find a way to make it work. And then, as we see from the stats, that Kanan is just the best rebel character in the game, probably the one of the best scoundrels, um, and I think offers a lot into this meta. And I think right now, I don't think the meta is solved or settled for this game at all. I think we're actually just sort of identifying the rock paper scissors structure of it. That there's really defensive lists, which are relatively looking like rebel lists. The moment you could argue some scoundrel lists can fall into that boat with Maul and Mando, um, and then aggressive lists, which are really your sort of traditional Empire stuff. It's kind of mix and match whatever you want. And then I think we're finding some interesting control lists are starting to appear. Mando's a big part of that. Maul can be a part of that. Django, Fifth Brother. just those characters with a lot of like early pushes, diceless displacement, a lot of those kind of classic structures. And so our local meta, which Vancouver, we have a very good scene here. We've got a lot of Empire players, a lot of really aggressive stuff, and I knew we'd be a good portion of the field. Um, and so with that in mind, I was like, all right, I want to play Leia, and so I'm going to try to build a list that has Leia in it. And I ended up basically saying, cool, well, we're just going to put Leia in place of Hera. And then I really like the Commandos more than I like Zeb, and I can talk about why Zeb over Chopper. I've got some pretty strong opinions on that after this event. Um, and then I personally now like love Agent Callus. I think Agent Callus's number of games he was an MVP for me. I think he's an incredible character with Spectres. I think he's a little weaker with Empire. I have a specific Empire Inquisition list I want to try him out with.
Hmm.
But he absolutely did me a real big solid on a couple of turns, both offensively and defensively. His ability works on non-combat attacks and whenever he's getting when a character's getting attack and defending. And so it's just a huge win to have him in there. And then with Kanan, if you need to go Sarasu, you can regenerate. And so it's not as punitive as it could be in other places. So that was my core list. My other list that I ran was Maul Mando as a control list with DTE, Fifth Brother, and then my God.
Darks.
Yeah, Dark Troopers, thank you. And Django. The other way around. So it was Maul, Django, Fifth Brother, and then
Right.
Mando, DTE, and Darks. I
Right.
only played it once in round 2 against I think it was his name uh it was the Brandon, right? The father of the guy I played in top 2. Um and
Uh, I think he
I
was.
think it,
I think he was another Ryan.
Ryan,
There was
yes.
a few
Okay.
Ryans.
Yes. Anyway, really nice guy. We had a really tight game. I
Yeah.
lost. I made some bad calls, and he was playing as pure specters. And I really walked away from that being like, all right, I'm just gonna play rebels the rest of the time. I know them. I'm gonna feel it out. I feel confident in them, and I really like getting to put Leia on the board. And so that was really
Mhm.
sort of the driving matter. But it was a little bit of like, I like the character, and I think this is going to do well into the current meta.
Fair enough. And yeah, I just want to follow that up with it was interesting. I kind of tried to put a bit of a Shatterpoint analyst hat on, especially after I was knocked out there, and look at the games and the top four, and uh, I think myself and looking at the top four, everybody had a list that they played every time except once.
Yeah, that's one of my gripes I
At,
have with Premiere is I don't think it's a real format because basically everyone is either doing round 1 their bad list, and
yeah,
then
there
the
was
rest of
some
the
of
time,
that.
yeah. And I think it's one of these gripes I have of like it's not actually a format that list guides you away from stuff because you're just going to make a power list and then kind of everything else is seems
Yeah,
to be the take.
yeah. Well, it was funny for me because um, I had Dooku Talzin,
Mm-hmm.
and they were basically like, if I see Empire,
Yeah,
I'm probably
strong
taking
counter
that,
list. Yeah, we got a
or
lot of defense.
if I see like shifting priorities, because I brought Showdown,
Yep.
and then my other list had done really well on Sabotage Showdown, and I tried it once or twice on Never Tell Me the Odds, and the mobility seemed good. It was my Kenobi Maul list,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, if I see Never Tell Me the Odds, I'm playing Kenobi Maul, and uh, and then I'm probably leaning heavier towards that, and then Dooku Talzin is for like if I face Iden or something like that, which I
Yep.
hadn't actually faced before. So I was paired up with a newer player round 1, so I introduced them to Dooku Mama, which they were still playing and happy at the end of the day. So so didn't traumatize them too heavily with the shenanigans that Dooku Mama gets you into. Um, but then the next game, my opponent had never tell me odds, so I went okay. They also had a lot of Republic, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a Hunter core. I realized, and because they also had Maul in there with Republic, which
Mm-hmm.
is what I was also doing. So yeah, I picked my Kenobi Maul list, and it was really close game, but I lost. So then I went, hmm, maybe I lean heavier towards Dooku Mama,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and played the rest of the event with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did our practice game because I was like, I don't know if they're good or bad on Never Tell Me Odds. I assumed bad, but they didn't too bad in that practice
No,
game. So I probably could have steered differently. But yeah, it's interesting how like on the day does not go the way you anticipated, and it's like, okay, I'm winning with this list and I lost with this one, so I guess I'll stick to the one I'm winning with.
yeah, no, absolutely. I kind of went in hoping to play Rebels, and then after my loss, I was like, all right, well, I just got to play Rebels all the way now.
Yeah.
And but I feel that in a big way, and I think we'll see as time goes on and we get more distinct list differences and the ability for people to have stronger expression separation. But
Mm-hmm.
for now, I think single list, power list is probably the direction we'll see for a lot of tournaments. And then when factions get a little more fleshed out, we'll see people being able to flex pieces um, in between to try to create something that's a little bit more of a hybrid counter to what they could be facing.
Right. So follow up question on your list.
Yeah.
Was it, uh, I guess, was the swap in Leia's squad due to just the power of those pieces, or was there something about Luke and Han Chewie that you thought, well, this probably isn't going to work as well in this?
Um. So it was a combination. One is that Callus gets to be Spectre, so you get an extra attack out of Kanan, um,
Mm-hmm.
which is really nice in the rerolls. So I sort of want to slot him in there, and then that obviously bumps out Han Chewie because they're five, and I think that in Nevertell and Sabotage Showdown, the commandos are so nice because they can grab 2 points, and you always know in
Mm-hmm.
Nevertell the left point on your side will spawn, and so you can grab that with a commando and then flex to try to get the middle point, and so your right side can be the one that's going to have to run up. And so you've got a lot of structure in that, and so I just honestly never, after choosing Leia, I really never looked back once I went Callus. And I was just like, okay, I got to find a 4 point I want to put here. And
Right.
originally it was going to be Zeb. And then I realized I wanted the body. And then I just really liked the pushing and the +1 damage that you get from the commandos. And so it just was like, well, I'm just going to go in this direction now.
Fair enough. All right. So with that, let's move on to Donovan's list. So Donovan was representing the Empire in this clapback meta,
Mm-hmm.
and so he had Vader 2 with Stormtrooper Sergeant and Dark Troopers, along with Moff Gideon, Death Trooper Escort, and Fifth Brother.
Mm-hmm.
So this is bringing 6 force, but of course Darth Vader has the refresh. Uh, no, um, nothing newer than Moff Gideon's box, um, which is interesting given the hype about more recent Empire uh, squad packs. Uh, so what were you thinking going into this match? Again, knowing that this is the list that he's favored more heavily and will probably play.
Yeah, so there's actually there were really, this is not that original, or not original, but this is not that unique or different a list. I sort of expected to play something like this at the event. I
Mm-hmm.
would say there were two core takeaways that I took from the list. One was that by putting um Moff Gideon and Fifth Brother in the same unit, he's got both of his tie breaks on one side of the board at the start, which is an
Mm-hmm.
interesting play that I don't think is as powerful. And if I was him, I actually would swap Fifth Brother and the Dark Troopers. And the reason for this is that Vader when he needs to, can turn on the aggression really hard. And then it's really nice if you have Vader turn on the aggression, kill something, and then let's say you're still going to be in a 2-2 tie if I've got 3 units on a point, and Fifth Brother can switch it, and you've got your tiebreakers spread on a more sort of diverse angle. So that was one, is that having both of those tiebreakers on that side was like, okay, I don't feel as scared about this.
Right.
Um,
Oh yeah, I guess I never thought about the fact that if they're both on the same point, it's still only one tiebreak basically.
well, they
Like
both
it's
check their
kind of
tiebreak.
doubling up. Yeah.
Yeah. But more so, it's just they're on the same side of the board, and so if
Mm-hmm.
there's only a few points, you're not going to compound the benefit, right? That you can
Mm-hmm.
get on the other side. Um, and then the other one is, in that situation, I really want Ezra to go against Fifth Brother.
Right.
And there's two reasons for that. One of them will come into play in Struggle 3 in this game, but the main one is that when you have two tie breaks, and you're the attacking player or the active player, it
Mm-hmm.
is actually the defender's tiebreak that activates second, because the attacking player always goes first, and so the defending tiebreak always breaks a tie. And so Ezra's actually a really nice counterpiece to Fifth Brother, and that also came up in this game, where he came in, was going to counter me. He takes the point with a tiebreak, and then I take the point back with a tiebreak.
Right.
Um, and so I want my Ezra to go into his Fifth Brother. And so my two things were basically like, okay, interesting. He stacked his tie breaks. I'm not really sure that's going to be the best thing for him, and I want to make sure I can deploy confidently into um, my Ezra going into his Fifth Brother. And those were my sort of two takeaways from his list. And generally everything else is like, he's going to play aggressive. He's going to hit me hard. He's going to dive deep. He's going to shoot a lot. He's got to make choices of when he wants to wound characters. Those are the sort of difficult decisions on his end. And
Mm-hmm.
I need to go into the game prepared to reinforce. I do it once in this game. Again, it was a pivotal reinforce in Struggle 2, I believe. And I go in knowing I'm like, okay, I'm going to be willing to spend that. I need to decide that at the beginning of the game and keep that in mind, so that when I'm in a moment, getting kind of emotionally charged, trying to think about what to do, I'm like, no, at the start of the game, I said there's probably going to be one pivotal reinforce, and I've got to do it. And so those are the things based on his list that I sort of went into the match thinking about.
All right. Fair enough. Uh, so with that, I guess we'll get started. It looks like you guys pulled the struggle card that is uh, balanced on both sides, so the cross, no one's at a
Yeah,
disadvantage.
questionable heroics, as it's called, as
Questionable
everyone in the
heroics.
community often refers to these cards by name.
Totally.
Um, yeah, but yeah, we pulled questionable heroics, which was it, it's good for everybody, which
Mm,
is nice. What it really did, and you'll see this over the game, and we can really start rolling here, and we'll talk through it
sure.
as it starts to happen. But this meant that the skiff was going to be this vital fight in the middle, and the skiff, you can sort of tell in the video here, there's a center console that's just to the right of the spawn point,
Hmm.
that really blocks a lot of bumping, and then there's fencing on both sides in the middle. And so I knew getting units onto the skiff, blocking them in, is going to be really vital to it. And now we're going to get to my first reveal here, which is Chopper. I'm straight up just going to talk, Dylan, and you just jump in whenever you want to ask a question.
Sure. Go for it.
As I'm pretty sure I could probably talk the whole time we do this. So
That's
I
why
pull
you're here.
Chopper. Yeah, I pull Chopper. I'm very happy about this, because this means I know that um my Ezra is going to grab that point on the right side,
Hmm.
or the top right of your screen. On the bottom right of your screen, my commando is going to grab that point. I'm going to get straight onto the middle, and Ezra and my chopper is going to be in there, and I'm going to be able to
Hmm.
go up a ladder that you can just sort of see the little bit of it. And I'm going to
Right.
place myself within one of that ladder right on there, and you'll notice that I put the butt of the base directly on what I think is the piloting console for the skiff.
Right.
And so I'm right on the point, in a hard place to dislodge, and in this position. Now, this is the start of the deck. Chopper's exposed. He can now get shot at. I'm going to be relying on his protection to do stuff here. Um, but I want it. Now, the other thing you just noticed here is that he just measured his point, and because of the terrain deployment, he actually wasn't going to be able to secure the point on the top left of the screen turn
Mm.
one. And that's an unfortunate part of that structure and how he chose to deploy around it. It was a tough piece of terrain to work with, because there's a huge chunk, and you can kind of see the amount of scatter. It's all part of the terrain piece. It can't be moved, so the
Hmm.
judges couldn't have placed it differently. It really made it so that he was going to have to spend his activation here to move Fifth Brother underneath it.
Right.
And so now Donovan's going to do that with Fifth Brother, which is good. He moves him up. I want Fifth Brother to come across the board. I really want Ezra to wound Fifth Brother. We played a local guy, Mario. I played him in top 8. He is an excellent player, and I love Ezra into supports because you get the extra um, momentum when you wound them. And on a lot of scenarios in Never Tell, if secondary unit is active, you can actually do 3-point swings with just Ezra's activation, and then you score the objectives. So you're able to do one for wounding the character, one for Ezra's bonus for wounding the character, and then with the Never Tell Me the Odds, you can move the struggle token, and then you count. And if you're
Right.
securing 3 points in struggle 2 or 3, which happens later on, no, or sorry for spoiling it, it's a huge benefit. And
Yeah.
so I really like that. Now, what he did here with his Death Trooper is he runs up and he's just coming to take a shot at, I believe, Chopper here. And um, this is what the risk I was running. I knew I was going to get shot at here, and I wanted to be on the point. And he, unfortunately, I believe, was trying to look for his reposition on the shot, which I believe is on the 5th position for the
Right.
Death Trooper.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't get it. And so now we see the situation where he's going to go try to push me because I think he only
Mm-hmm.
gets 1 or 2 successes. I think
If
he
you
gets
got
2 successes.
Yeah, if you got three successes, he gets 2 shoves.
Yeah. Now here's his
But,
push. This is the other thing we should note. This push that he makes, he
mm-hmm.
actually pushes me, and then, and this was a mistake on his part. He puts
Into the railing.
Chopper into the railing.
Yeah.
And so that the top part of his base is now in line with that railing, and this
Mm-hmm.
comes up later and makes his push more difficult. So
Right.
my second pull here is Kanan. Again, I feel good about this. It's an early Kanan, but he likes to be in a good position. I'm going to be able to get him up and dive, and I actually decide I'm going to give Ezra the free movement off of pack leader here, or for
Right.
being in pack leader stance, and then
Mm-hmm.
Kanan's going to go, and then I'm going to do a full move action with Kanan, where I'm going to end within 2 of Ezra, which is going to give Ezra his jump, and I'm actually intentionally clearing the top right point here, and I'm going to have no one on it because I really want him to either dive Fifth Brother or the DTE onto that point sometime during Struggle 1 because I think I'm going to be able to collapse and punish him for it. My Leia actually wasn't in the opportune moment position I wanted her to be in when that happened, but Kanan was, and I ended up getting what I needed out of it. So now we see Ezra. He gets to do his jump up, and he's actually kind of in a no man's land here because I really want the flexibility to go for all of the points around him if I'd like it. And now I actually make a pivotal mistake. I choose to attack with Kanan into the
Death
DTE,
Trooper.
which is a
Mm-hmm.
total mistake. Uh, because he could have disciplined out of this. I think I end up
Right.
getting a pin by just pure luck. But as I was rolling this dice, I suddenly realized, okay, I'm excited, I'm at top table, and I'm not thinking through my decisions.
So I start blasting.
And this was a mistake. And what happens is we go through the sequence here, and I'm very fortunate that either I got a pin or he just chose not to use disciplined. Now he obviously
Yeah.
wouldn't flip the point, but it would get another body on there, and that point's gonna stack
Mm-hmm.
up in the middle over time. And so he doesn't get it, and we just move on, which was a huge moment for me to be like, okay, breathe, calm down. I think I actually get my water bottle. You might see me in this. I go get my water bottle from off the side of the table and be like, okay, I need to drink more. I need to like slow down what I'm doing, think, make sure I've got enough, um, you know, enough water in me to get through this. Um, and so I did the 1 damage from the uh yeah, the 1 damage from the commandos,
Commandos.
and then I do another 1 damage. So I think I only did 1 success into him. And then he
Right, because he's
didn't
got protections.
yeah, and then he didn't do the disciplined off this. And so unfortunately we can't see his activation, but I think he flips the he flips the dark troopers here.
Right.
And
Okay.
he's going to have the dark troopers run in to the middle. So this is he's No, he's doing a dash, which means is this when Gideon goes, or is this,
Um,
or was
might
this
be
the
jump
shatter?
boots.
No, because he would go up
Oh,
the platform. I think this is a Shatterpoint activation of the DTE.
Shatterpoint. Oh, okay, could be.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This is the Shatterpoint
right.
activation of the DTE. So
Okay.
he then does this, pays a force, dashes, goes up this ladder position, and I, in this moment, was like, "Great, he's going to dive this top
Mm-hmm.
right point that I want to secure him on, and I'm going to sack this point for this turn. This is risky, but I think I can collapse back on him, and I'm going to be able to really secure this. And what you can kind of tell with the discoloration in the top right there is that there is a sand barrier that he's going to put his back to right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be able to just pin him in and wail on him, and I'm going to be able to secure that spot. So he goes there and he grabs that, and then in this instance he's just going to get his 3 points, which is good. And I pull Ezra. I
Right.
am
Let's pause for a
yeah.
second. I've got I have not been keeping track of the points here.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
you
So I scored three on my, or so he
so
went
yeah,
second. So he
you
scores first
captured
three,
3.
but I don't score. He
Yeah.
scores one on his turn. The
Uh
bottom left one.
well but he did
Oh
move
yeah, and fifth
5th
brother.
up.
So he gets two
So he
on
should
that
have gotten 2.
Yep,
You're getting 3
on
on
mine.
the
Yep. So it goes
following
back to there.
activation and then him 3 now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
We should
that's
be at
yeah, this
one.
is the end of cuz he got 2, then you
I
3,
got three.
then
Yeah,
him
and he
3
goes
again.
back. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Right.
So it's back to this
Okay.
position.
Okay.
And so I
Because
pull
that
Ezra.
was the end, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the end. He's in that position, and I just flipped Ezra.
Okay.
Um, And so I decide Ezra's going to break ties. I'm just going to go back, break this tie, neutralize this deep character he spent a shatter
Mm-hmm.
point and an activation on. This character's not coming back for the rest of Struggle 1, most likely. And
Right.
Ezra's just going to be able to win this point over and over again for me. It's also going to keep Ezra probably alive, where I'm not sacrificing health on him, so I can use his jump later to close the distance onto Fifth Brother and secure those points from him later. I then try to check here for commandos. I don't think I had it. Um, no, I didn't have it, and then I roll Ezra, and unfortunately, the dice resolution is not. In future, I can't wait to get a dice cam.
Right. Yeah.
um, but I do believe Ezra did a wallop here.
Yeah. I
If
see a
memory
couple of
serves.
crits for sure.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe it's more clear on your screen versus the shared one, which makes sense.
Yeah. It might be a
And so
little
yeah, I
bigger.
think Ezra, if I'm looking at my damage chart here, um, I think I had 4 successes on the chart, and I pin and I strain him here. And what's great about that is that means that he's definitely not going to discipline out of the position and run away. And I'm going to end up doing a total of, oh yeah, I remember this attack. I do a pin and a strain, and I do 5 damage on the chart plus 1 from my expertise table. So he takes an additional 4. And
Mm.
that puts him at 7 of his, I think, 9 with protection, which means that he's in a tough spot now. And I'm going to be able to probably take that character at some point. And with strain and pin, he's that is a waiting momentum for me on an activation when I want it. And now I think this is the turn he flips the Dark Troopers, and so he jump packs up here, and then he is going to run onto the point. So he's gonna, or he climbed, sorry, and then he jumps over onto the point. I think is what happens. But he gets into position here. This is also an interesting one. So had he jump packed and then moved, he would have been able to get them both characters further around the corner and had a better
Mm-hmm.
angle for pushing. And pushing on this attack becomes really critical. So first he attacks with that top DT, um, and then he rolls. Um, and if I remember correctly, he gets this does go pretty well for him. Um, yeah, I don't think I got much defense on this. Um, and so oh
Yeah. I
no, he
see.
did. This was just one crit, I think, that goes through on this one. Um,
Right. Okay.
yeah. And so what he's looking for here is he knows he's going to secure the point, but he also wants to push Chopper off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other choice that's weird, so this is the second attack. The other choice that's weird here is that he doesn't position to block my stairs. So I have an ingress on the top side of the screen
Mm-hmm.
that Chopper came up, and with by doing the climb jump versus the jump move, he's not positioning himself as fully arced around to do this. And so this is when he goes to do a push. I point out the ladder, and then this is the lovely Judge Evan who comes in, and Evan makes a ruling here that the position that he pushed Chopper from DTE attack actually is going to be blocked by the railing on it, and that Chopper in fact will not be able to be pushed off, but he can be pushed down, like further down to the right on the skiff towards my table side.
Right.
Um, and I think we're gonna have a moment here come up um, that we won't pause because the game state doesn't move forward, but I'll explain what's happening
Right.
as you'll see me step away from the table. Um, so he goes and he goes to move me, and then I think Evan is just explaining that you're going to hit the back of the skiff wall here. We
Mm-hmm.
have a little bit of terrain collapse, that sort of classic Shatterpoint struggles. And then Chopper is now hitting, which you can't quite see it, but he's now touching the rear of the sort of back wall to the skiff. Now, you'll notice that I just stepped away from the table. So I'm playing against Donovan, and his father, Ryan, is standing next to the table. I played Ryan in Swiss. He was a lovely opponent. We had a great game. He beat me. And he's really excited, and he's standing next to the table. And at this point, there had been two occasions where Ryan very innocently, under his breath, had talked about triggers or damage or had reactions to the table state. And I'm a former, X-wing player, played a lot of X-wing, and I've been at tournaments with parents and their kids, and I've seen moments where inadvertently parents have said a thing at a table that has caused either a warning point to go out and a kid really to sort of lose their confidence in that moment, or to get DQ'd in a game. And so when he did this again during this attack, I actually asked the judge and Ryan, the dad, to step to the side of the table with me for a sec. And I just like, hey man, we played in Swiss. You're a great guy. I really like you. I want your son to have a really good game. He seems like a good dude. But I just want to take a moment here to make sure that we are all in understanding of what's going on here. And Ryan totally understood. He was excited. He just wanted to make sure that he hadn't done anything wrong, which he hadn't, and I wanted to make sure clear to Evan that I wasn't calling a specific thing. I just wanted to sort of be preemptive, and we're just having that conversation off the side of the table. And I decided I think we want to talk about this in this because it's one of those ways in which, as a player, you really got to take agency over your game and the environment you're going to play in. And so for me, this was a situation of just being like, hey, let's just have a conversation here and make sure everyone knows how everyone's feeling, set some boundaries, and then like get back to the table and play the game we want to play. And we sort of resolve it really quickly. Everyone's on the same page, and I should be walking back into frame here, ideally in a second. Perfect. There I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just chime in for a second
Yeah.
to provide a outsider's perspective. Um, like I do think it was very clear that everyone's intention is for this to be like a very clean game. I noticed the one time the first time he chimed in, I think, was you guys were engaged in melee. He's like, oh hey, you lose your hunker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's stuff where like
to Donovan, he was calling out,
yeah,
your hunker.
Yeah, to Donovan, because I think obviously like the intention is that like we want to make sure everything's all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because like this is the final table, we just want to make sure everything's clean, right? And so, and yeah, when you step to the side, like I definitely felt that was a preemptive thing. Like there was nothing, like it's not that anything bad had happened.
No,
but
no.
But
and nothing does. And like,
and nothing does.
There's
yeah.
It's a clean game the whole way.
Yeah,
and which is very fortunate.
So, and then the decision, of course, was to have the judge, since it's final table, he doesn't have other tables to worry about. Just kind of have him deal with board state, and so yeah, that was resolved, and everyone's intentions are good,
Yeah,
but we just
yeah,
want to avoid a future negative situation, right?
yeah, absolutely. And everyone's understanding, and I'm very thankful for that in our community and space, which is great. So I believe you moved the score here. For no, you didn't move the score for Donovan. So Donovan
Not
in that
yet.
situation scored 3
He
again.
scored 3 again. Yep.
Yeah, so it goes back to that 2 position. And now I activate my clone commandos or my rebel commandos. And so I move them up. So I'm going to go put one of the commandos on the skiff, and then I was going to have the other commando within 2 of the objective. I was originally going to try to put him fully blocked and in cover, but then I realized that was a waste because the other commando is the one that's going to get shot and they're both going to get wounded. So I put him just at range to be able to shoot the Death Troopers. And so he's just at range 5 of the Death Troopers. And now I'm rolling the commando attacks. I think this is the melee attack on the
They got.
skiff.
Is it 7 dice in melee?
I have a
I should pull
focus
it
because
up.
I spend 1 to do the commando tactics, so it would be 7 dice with a
Yeah.
base.
Okay.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this is that, and my goal here is just to get damage on the Dark Troopers. I don't expect to wound them. I do think I actually inadvertently do end up wounding them here. Which is where the first struggle starts to sort of really go. Yeah, so I go and I'm now shooting the Dark Trooper here. Um, I do think yeah, so he rolls. If I remember correctly, did this roll go poorly? No, it looks like he's got a number of blocks here. Yeah, he's got 3 blocks. Um so I think in this instance, I'm not remembering exactly what happens here. This is exciting for all of us. So he's got a 3 block here. So I don't think I can wound these on this one. I don't think it happens here.
Yeah. You're getting 4 steps. It looks like.
Um yeah. And 4 on them is
5
just
damage.
heals. Yeah. But with their protection and their pin and they're immune to pin, it really isn't much,
Right. Immune to
basically.
pin. Right.
Yeah. Um, so I think I do probably 3 damage here. I have no damage from expertise here. And so I think I only do 3 here. And I think this is the interesting one. I think we settle on going back into 0 position. Um, and I we both get a momentum up in this moment. Um, and this sort of becomes a pivotal turn where he on his next activation needs to find a pathway up to uh securing the 4 positions if he can, because that's really he could take the first struggle effect, not take a
Right.
huge lead in first struggle here if he can find a way to 4 points, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I flipped the middle back here. Yeah, so it looks like he's taking a total of 3 damage on the troopers, um which is not enough for me to get it back here and puts me a little behind. And so I do believe I get a small push here, and I just push it up into this wall,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then that's it. Um, Now at this point, I realize the sort of mistake I made in this activation is I should have moved my Rebel Commando further up. If you think of it as an arc around that bottom right point, I should have moved him just probably 2 inches up and to the right, so he could have shot the other one, which I would have been able to push off, and then I would have had a
Mm.
2-to-1 advantage. And so
Right.
um, I remember sort of feeling again kind of stupid like the DTE and starting to get a little angry at myself of like, hey, you're making mistakes. Um, and you're not going to win if you keep making these little errors because each stroke counts. So he scores here. We go back to the middle. We each get a momentum. He activates Moff Gideon here, and he chooses to move Fifth Brother right underneath the point again. There's unfortunately no ingresses around that point on that side, and then he moves Moff Gideon up, and I believe he just ends up coming up here, going up this ladder, um, and then coming around to the point. Yeah. So this is huge because this is a way for him to look for his four control turn
Hmm.
and puts me in a bad spot. I believe he attacks Ezra here, which I think is the right call because I can't dash any more on the point with Ezra. And if he attacked Kanan, there's a world where Kanan could find a way to dash back to the point. I don't think he would have made it over that piece of struggle terrain, but or not struggle, the
Scatter.
scatter terrain. I mean, yeah. And so yeah, he gets Gideon here, and I think he gives me a strain and a pin, which I remember thinking to myself, I've got to turn off because when I want Ezra to move, I want to be able to make sure he can do everything I need.
Yeah.
Actually, it might have been a
I don't.
disarm and a strain.
Yeah, I don't see a path for him to get strain
So it's
and.
disarm strain. Oh,
Uh,
oh, you don't think it's disarm? Yeah.
yeah, it looks like
Um,
strain active ability, and he gets a heal.
no, I think it's the top
Depending
half.
how.
I think it was
Okay,
just
just
disarm and
disarm.
3 damage or disarm and 4 damage there.
Right. Okay.
I do end up getting to heal Ezra back actually
Hmm.
from Kanan predominantly. And so then he scores 3, I believe, on this one again.
Now, I just want to pause for a second.
Yeah.
Um, because I saw maybe a pathway. Because the Death Trooper escort is on 2 health left, right? He's got 7 out of
Correct. I
9.
believe so. Yeah.
Um, because yeah, when you said strain, I thought, oh, maybe he's taking the middle. He's going to set off the active ability,
No, he didn't do
and
that. But could he have done that there?
uh, yeah, if he had 3 successes, he could have long lived the Empire, um, to wound and wake him back up, and have
Yeah.
him sitting there at full health
Oh, that's
with a
true.
wound, of course,
Yeah.
um, but
I don't know if that's worth it
removing.
because he's not going to break the tie. You know,
This is true. Yeah,
if it was a
yeah.
wounded situation, it was an unactive tote. Yeah, I could see that. Or if it was a well on a fifth brother, it doesn't even take it back because of my tie break. But if it was a fifth brother versus a non tie breaking one, yeah, I could totally see that moment. Also, it's supporting unit only, not. Oh no, no, you're right. Sorry, it's
Uh,
yeah, it's supporting unit only, so he can't do it with DTE.
oh,
Just
you're
needs to
right.
be secondary. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Good to know
All
because
right,
I will be playing Moff a bit in the
you
future.
should. He is
Yeah.
excellent. I think he's an incredible aggressive control piece they have. And
All right.
so
So that
I
will have
now
been 3 for him there.
that would have been 3 for him there, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I activate Callus here, and again, I adore Callus immensely. I give him he gets his on active dash up. I spend a force so he gets his focus and his sharpshooter, and then I have him take a walloping shot into the dark troopers, and I do +1 damage with the commandos. So what's great is that leaves them, I think, with 4 health to take damage, and I believe Callus. I've got the chart here. He can do 4 damage plus protection. Um, yeah, so when shooting on 1 expertise, I get a crit and an auto damage, and on 2 successes, I do 5, and so that'll push past the protection and do the damage. So Callus actually wounds the Death Troopers or the Dark Troopers here on that shot, and it's huge for me. This is where the sort of game starts to open up, and I am able to start climbing back into it. Um, and what's interesting is this moment of I'm actually not going to swing it back onto my side. And so I'm going to get 2 momentum, one for wounding, and then I move it 3 positions, and it goes back to the middle. And so um, I, you know, we're in the same spot here, but he's now got to find a way to get something into the middle. Gideon's activated,
Hmm.
so he can't do Long Live the Empire on those Dark Troopers because Gideon's
Right.
gone. His Shatterpoint was spent on the DTE. So in this instance, the cards he has are Fifth Brother, Vader, and Sergeant. And
Hmm.
I'm thinking, I don't think he's going to be able to get up here and stop 2. And then I just move um, Callus a little foolishly. I move him just to the point behind the skiff and in a position so I can dash him up to get on the skiff if I needed to. There actually wasn't an avenue to get to the ladder or place himself up on the ladder, which becomes relevant later in the game. But now the top of that skiff is also getting very crowded.
Hmm.
And so we are definitely in a situation where there's only going to be room for probably one more model in range of the center objective. And so he flips Vader here, and he gives Vader his on flip, on activation movement, and Vader runs up. I believe there is a ladder just around that corner. Yeah, so he's checking
Right.
for that ladder, places himself up top there,
Yeah.
and
So this
then
will be a
now,
move action because he doesn't get any move from his tactic.
um,
Um,
oh, you're right.
and
So it's a move
then
action, and then he pays for
so yeah, now he's paying
anger
for the
hate move
dash.
action.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And
And
so he
just
takes
enough
the
room
last
for him
spot.
there.
Yeah,
That's
and so
good.
he
Yeah.
takes the last spot on the skiff there. Um, and now the thing I know is that this is a 2-on-1, and Vader has no diceless displacement. So I know he's
Hmm.
actually not going to be able to flip this back, and so he's only going to walk out of here with 2 points. And
Right.
so I'm starting to feel like, okay, if I can withstand here, I think I can live. And I think um if memory serves, he attacks the rebel commandos, which is the right call, because he wants to take them offline because of my +1 damage that I'm getting
Right.
out of them every turn, which I've already
Hmm.
done, I think, 3 damage out of them, which really starts to add up, especially in Empire lists where they
Hmm.
don't like taking a lot of damage. And so I think he just, is, as is Vader, gets his whole tree, absolutely obliterates these rebel commandos. Um, and then he goes to push them off, but doesn't have an angle, which is actually helps him out for an activation, and I have to wait a little bit. Um, and then now he's gonna get his free dash, which I don't remember. I think he dashes Gideon. I don't remember what he's checking here. Um, oh, this is what it was.
Yeah.
We're identifying the timing between, um, perhaps a way I can find a way to motivate them, and my
Mm.
clapbacks. And so,
Right.
because he's attacker, he gets to make the dash first. He dashes Gideon into the point. He's now going to have 2-on-1 on the point.
Hmm.
And so I dash Leia as far over as I can get her to do. And you're going to see me. I
Right.
actually put a ruler down here
Yeah. Because
that I
I'll
can.
just note, since she's fairly new, that her dash is a towards the wounder.
Yes.
So that's where.
Yeah. So I have to point the V towards Vader, and then I dash as diagonally to Vader as I can get. And
Right.
unfortunately, I am out of range, which is actually a mismeasure because she can only attack Vader here. Um, but I'm
Right.
just trying to see
That
where the
too.
situation
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and
Then you can give
and then
someone within 3 a hunker.
I believe I'm reminded of this by Evan, and I give it
Right.
to Callus.
Yeah. It looks like
And
he's the
then
only one.
Yeah, and then I'm activating Kanan, and this is where Kanan starts to heal. So he heals the disarm, I
Oh
believe, and the
yes. Right.
damage onto Ezra, and then I'm able to jump back onto the point. So now I have my 2 against his 1. Um, and yeah, and so now at this point, I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've saved my point here, and then he scores his 2. Um, and we in this moment, he goes to secure the position, and but because Ezra breaks ties and he breaks ties, it goes to him and it
Hmm.
comes back to me, and so
Right.
I'm able to keep it.
Right. And
Um,
now Kanan's there. Or Death. Uh, no, Death Trooper is still alive.
he's still alive.
So
Oh,
yeah.
no, no, no.
So yeah. Now it's a
Kanan
tie.
attacks him here. Oh, no, 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 I don't attack because he wounded rebel commandos who are not specters. So
Right.
Kanan just heals and then jumps back onto the point, so I'm going to win it in this point. But I
Hmm.
know in this activation, I have to activate somebody who can wound um, the death the DTE, because
Right.
otherwise I'm going to lose that point to him in this flow. And so just
Right.
remember, he scored
Yes.
2, so we're back at we're back on his side of 2. Great.
Hmm.
And so I flip over my Shatterpoint, and I am deciding on if I want to activate Kanan here to dash the commando off of the skiff, so
Mm-hmm.
that Leia is going to be able to dash the Agent Callus onto it. But I decide not to do this because I realize that Leia is going to give herself the dash. No. Um,
So yeah, she can choose another allied rebel or spy unit, and each character in the chosen unit may dash,
Yeah,
and then and get a hunker.
yeah. So I don't remember who I dash with her.
And then, or unless
Um,
you did give her the dash, maybe.
no, I think she performed crack shot. So she does her crack shot where
Oh,
she
okay.
dashes herself.
Hmm.
Um, I
You
actually
may
screw up here. This is I could have gotten another
maybe you
point here.
missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I could
Um.
have dashed. I could have used into the garbage chute flyboy to pull the rebel commando off, which I do on the next activation
Right.
with Leia, and then
Do
use It's a
you?
Wonder You're Still Alive to put Callus up.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you used Wonder You're Still Alive to get them off,
No, 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 no. I
but no,
use in the end in the
same.
next activation. I do into the. So I could have actually. So I do the DTE kill here. That's what we're skipping over. Is I dash into this position. I see through the
Hmm.
gap in the top there. I do the DTE kill, so I'm going to win the top 2-1, because I have Kanan and Ezra there, and then I'm going to score the 3, because he's Chopper's still there, and the point was mine. So now I score the 3, and I got the DTE wound. And at this point, I'm starting to feel like I might have struggle 1 potentially in the bag, because I know that he has the sergeant and fifth brother to activate, and
Hmm.
I'm not super worried that either of them are going to be able to make a 3-point swing here. The sergeant could get across, but I don't think he can actually make it to my point, and he flips over fifth brother here. And so with fifth brother, he runs up here. He goes up this ladder, and I think he then chooses to hunker off. And I thought he was going to do a force repulse here. I believe he had 2 force. No, he does not. No, I think there's actually 1 force just off screen because I count 5 there. So I think he had 2
Yeah,
force.
I see
He
the edge of
hunkers.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, he hunkers off, and I thought he was going to force repulse me off the point, and
Mm-hmm.
I was a little worried about it. But he then chooses to do that, and then he jumps. So he spends a force and does a force jump. I now realize, okay, he only has 1. He's not going to be doing the repulse, and because he hunkered and moved, this is it. He thinks again he's going to win the tiebreak, and then I point out that it's like, no, I have 2, and I'm second player, so I win the second tiebreak. And Evans chimes up that this is the case again, and so he now only scores 2.
Just
Um, and so then now I flip Leia over, and I realize um, I should have done the mistake I made last turn, which I could have done. And so I now do into the garbage chute with the flyboy, chuck that commando and his
mm-hmm.
wounded body off the skiff, and then I pay my one of my last 2 force to It's a Wonder You're Still Alive, and I'm going to put Callus run around the corner, go up that ladder that's there, and he's going to go secure the position so that I will be there for future contesting. And the reason I'm comfortable with this is that Leia's in the back, so she's going to secure the point on the lower ground if I need to. And so I think this is me really just thinking through this. I remember trying to make sure that I had this because Leia's level of out of activation movement is incredible. Um,
Yeah, I was just thinking, especially with kind of the lack of out of activation movement on rebel secondaries currently.
yeah, it really is. She unlocks so much of it, which is such an amazing part. And so this is me measuring and seeing that I'm going to be like, okay, Callus can get there, and now I'm choosing to move this wounded guy off. He goes down, and then I'm going to look and I'm going to spend my force. Oh, he gets a hunker, but he's dead. So I was just like, okay, I'll
Right.
give him a, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then I move Callus up. He goes to the ladder and he climbs up onto the point. And so now I've got 2 bodies back to his 1 body up here again. And so I'm feeling like, all right, the sergeant's not going to be able to wound Chopper and then take this back or anything like that. And
Hmm.
that actually comes up in the next activation in a big way because this is my last card. And so I now have 1 force left, and I have Leia, and I decide to shoot at I think uh, Vader here. Oh, I remember this moment. I'm trying to decide, and I actually make a mistake here, and I should have actually sharpshooter crack shotted my way through this gap. And
Okay.
instead I moved, and I would have been able to sharp or crack shot just on the other side of it. And instead, and just by moving, her dice drops from 8 to 5. And I actually think that this attack basically
Hmm.
does. I think I get maybe a push or nothing, but I get her onto the point here just so that I now have um 3 on the point to his 2 because I don't want him to flip the tiebreak back. So my thought was if I did the dash over, I wouldn't be in range, but I would hopefully get there on the 2 pushes she has on 1 and 2. Um, and so then I go and I shoot Fifth Brother. And now I'm starting to work on Fifth Brother here because I want to get Fifth Brother low because I want Ezra to be able to pop Fifth Brother when Ezra activates in the next struggle. And
And
he
that was all
rolls
fails on his
yeah,
side.
and he
Yeah.
rolls all blanks. And so this is when I was really frustrated because had I done the crack shot dash, I would then get to attack, move twice off of the pushes, and probably do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage, 5 with protection, leave an expose on him, push twice and get a dash and a disarm. So Fifth Brother would really be taken out of the game in a big way at that point. I would obviously try to leave him as low as I can without wounding him intentionally. Instead, what I choose to do here is I go the top route, and the reason for this is that I'm going to heal more damage on Ezra again. And this is really vital because it means that I don't need to pay 2 force later to get Ezra his jump, which is going to be a pivotal in the third struggle. And then I spent my last force on the commandos to do the 1 damage there, just to make sure I got Fifth Brother as low as I could without wounding him to make Ezra's job easier later. And so this is one of the ways that I like to play Rebels is I'm actually looking to do damage. I just don't expect it to come from single attacks in the way that like Iden or Vader or ISF troopers can just sort of absolutely wallop someone in one attack. You've really got to
Right.
try to look for the synergies to set it up. So now
Yeah.
that's the end of my activation, and I'm going to score 3 in this scenario here. And so from that, I'm now feeling pretty positive. I'm within 2 on my side, and I reset and shuffle. And now he has a brutal activation here, which is he has to activate Stormtrooper Sergeant. And
Right.
he gives Fifth Brother a dash to try to bring him back to the middle of the board and into the fight um, with his activatable ability. And then he decides to move up and he's going to take a shot at Chopper. The problem is, I just flipped. So Chopper's
Mm.
card is in my stack and he is an ineligible
Right.
target.
Right.
And this is me pointing to the board and he goes, okay. And I think he still has Callus here. Um, and so no, I think he didn't have Callus, and so he does a hunker. And
Mm.
so at this point, he only secures 2 in this scenario. And then this is going to secure me the struggle because it's going to go back to the middle. We're
Right.
each going to get a momentum, and I know I'm going to win. Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's the vital point. I flip over Ezra. This is too soon because I'm going to win the struggle in this scenario, and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do this. So I spend 1 to do this. And then Evan points out that Gideon is going to force me to spend another. So I roll over to
Mm.
Chopper, who I'm delighted to do, and I go, oh, yep, I've got to spend this. I already flipped the next card, and I want Ezra preserved no matter what. I do not want to play Ezra in first struggle at this point. He is here for later. And I'm actually, again, happy with Chopper here. He's kind of a dead activation in a way that's fine. I don't need him to
Right.
do a lot, and I'm just going to have him do here. The discussion I'm having is do I want Chopper to attack Vader? He can't do a lot of damage, but Vader has an expose from doing his force feed
Right.
ability.
Yeah.
And so I am wondering if it's worth it, if I should save it. But then I realize that I'm pretty sure um Vader's always going to be exposed after he activates, and Vader's going to come up again soon because he's just gone through his deck. And what else is Chopper going to do? I think I choose to heal or recover 1 on Chopper there, and then I have Chopper just take a swing at Vader and try to do some damage. I can't push him at all; he's completely blocked in by his Dark Troopers, and I take an attack on him here. I don't think I do much with this. I think it's 3 damage maybe, um, but it is just an attempt to do this. And you'll see here on my dice tray, I always say at the start of the game, dice aren't in the tray; they don't count, and I have to roll them into the tray. Um,
Right.
and so he gets 4 blocks on Vader. I think I don't do a lot. I think I do. Is it no damage here? Do I do something to Vader here? Okay, I do 4 damage. So
Okay.
yeah, it's 3 successes that go through, and I do 3 damage or 4 damage and push him and do nothing. And then I'm
Right.
gonna secure the struggle. And uh so we're now in a really tight spot. He's gonna flip this over. If I look at my cards here, I think I can probably decipher which layout he has. I believe the layout in this scenario is um it's the top one from its worse. And so he decides to go with, from the orientation we're looking at, the sort of mid
Mhm.
left point becomes the fail, the mid right point becomes the diamond, and then the top of your screen objective becomes the block. And this actually has a moment where I'm almost baited into making a really bad choice on my activation. And so he chooses the one with the block at the top,
So
and
the other option would have just had that be the bottom, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, but in this scenario, if a supporting unit wounds an enemy unit, you can
Mm.
count.
Pay
You can
pay
pay one to
one
move the
to
struggle.
yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, this is the scenario I want. I'm looking for supporting. I want it because Ezra can do his 3-point swing, which I love that play and Never Tell Me the Odds. I think it's really powerful. And I believe he flips over Moff Gideon as his first activation here. And so Leia's abandoned the diamond point
Hmm.
on the back of the skiff. Vader, I believe, is within 2 of his fail point. And so he's starting to do some math on Gideon here. And what he's starting to realize, again, Donovan was really at this point dialed into the match. Um, he was initially very discouraged that he had lost first struggle. And now he sees a path that he's going to score 4 secures right here. Um, and so he rolls. I believe it's the fail. So I think it's the top of this. No, okay, it's the block at the top of the screen.
Right. Hmm.
Um, he gets Gideon. He gives the
Mm-hmm.
fifth brother, who he had jumped, a dash to the ladder. And then I believe fifth brother is going to be just in range of the top position now. And then Gideon is going to do the his own dash after giving fifth brother. He's going to dash out of combat. That
Hmm.
commando he dashed into is wounded, so it doesn't stop him. And then I believe he chooses to perform a dash and an attack here. Yeah, he dashes and he attacks Callus, if I remember correctly. Um, and so we actually end up, unfortunately, having a little discussion here where he puts Callus or Gideon right underneath the skiff and asks if he can shoot Callus. And we had not discussed what the height of the outsides were and that the grate was fully blocked. And so I was in these situations when I failed to discuss it with the opponent, I'm just going to ask the judge, right? I'm like,
Right.
oh, we didn't figure this out. So at this point, Evan is just quickly taking a look at the table here. You see his head pop into frame, and
Hmm.
he is trying to figure out what he's going to rule on this. And he actually ends up getting the rule book. And in the end, he rules that there is a valid shot because there is not a size 2 piece of terrain at Callus's elevation between
Right.
Callus's position and that of Gideon, which is, I believe, a correct interpretation of the situation. But we should have
Hmm.
talked about the height of the back of that skiff, which is a failure on my part at the start of the game. But this is why you have judges at these kinds of events,
Yep.
because then there's no bad feelings.
Um. Oh yeah. So looks like
So
what?
Evan came back with the
Yeah.
ruling on
Right.
that Gideon was going to have a valid shot, and so he
Right.
does a shot up into Callus, and this hits. I remember this did a sizable amount of damage to me, so I think I'm taking
It looks like
5 damage and a pin.
and disarm, I think, as
Yeah,
well.
I think so. It was a wallop.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, he is going to secure all 4 positions and take a commanding lead in second struggle.
Yeah. That
And
is the
so
start you want to a
yeah,
struggle.
it is absolutely. Well, it is and it isn't. So I am a firm
Mm.
believer that if you win first struggle, sacking second struggle is a fine thing if it's going to set you up ideally for third.
Hmm.
And by setting you up, I mean you spend the time wounding enemy units. Um, not wounding, you sending them 1 or 2 health from wounding them, so that you can then pop them in third struggle and try to generate a ton of momentum really quickly. And
Right.
so I flip over Princess Leia here. I want to keep Ezra. And so the trap I almost fall into here is in the scenario, it's worse. I could have um I could have activated Ezra, gone to try to fight over the point with Fifth Brother, wounded him, moved the struggle tracker, scored the position, and gotten more. But fortunately, I rolled on the fail position, so it was still in that spot. Ezra's not going to move Vader off that point. He's locked with the wall that's the grating,
Hmm.
and he's not going to wound Vader, who I think only took 3 damage, and so, or 4 damage. And so I realize, oh, I think I can win the game. I ask, you just saw me there. I asked to look at my scenarios for Never Tell for turn 3, and I realize that he's 1-4. I am not contesting any of the positions, so I can control that he goes into third scenario or third struggle at the end of his next activation. And I flip over and I was like, okay, if I get either no such thing as luck or um 1 in a million, I think I have the deployment positions that I can win in third struggle. So I activate Leia, and this activation, I am just here to try to do some damage on somebody I might wound in the next one. Um, and I'm just trying to position her up the board and get into position. So you'll notice I jump, or I think I dash Ezra with her ability
Hmm.
towards this ladder. And this is because Ezra is going there to hunt Fifth Brother, because he's going to get his 3 point, his ideally his 3 points if it's no such thing where secondary units get them on struggle 3, or he's going to go get his extra momentum for it as well. And she runs up here, and I think I choose to attack Vader. Um,
Yeah, it looks like that was the measurement.
Yeah, and I think my choice here is because if I get Callus after Ezra, he can spend a force, get his impact and his focus, and he can hit. And I might be able to wound Vader up top, and that hurts a lot. Starts to hurt his force economy if it
Hmm.
goes long. But I'm sitting here thinking, I think I can win in now 3 or 4 turns from this position, based on having Ezra in reserve and the state. And so I can't. I get some pushes on Vader, which won't matter. I do a little bit of damage to him, but not much, if I remember correctly. And then I secure nothing. He gets a momentum here, and now or sorry, I get a momentum here, which won't
Hmm.
matter. And then he's immediately going to win at the end of this struggle. And I forget what he flips here. Is it Dark Trooper?
Um,
I forget what he flipped
yeah,
here.
I can't see what. Oh, that might be
He
Vader.
reserves it. It's
Yeah, it
Dark
looks like he's
Troopers, and he reserves it. Yeah.
reserve
So I remember I'm sitting here
or
at this
Darks.
point,
Yeah.
and I am or sorry, it's Death Troopers. Sorry, he flips over Death Trooper escort, I think, and he saves it because he's going to win the struggle already. And and then he flips over into Sergeant, and he's
Hmm.
over the moon about Sergeant because he's going to run Sergeant to this far point here, which is a good play on his part. It's a good position that comes up twice, um, both on no such luck, I think, or no such things as luck. And he goes up there and then just hunkers in his position, taking cover and doing it. And then he's going to win the struggle.
Did
And
he
I
did he
remember,
give out the advance to his support? I don't think so.
I think he didn't. I think he didn't want to. He didn't want to move Fifth Brother
Mm-hmm.
from the point, and
Right.
he didn't want to move the Dark Troopers because when they res, they're probably just going to be in a good position for either of those 2 points. And so he goes and he flips over 1 in a million. And I remember he flips over 1 in a million, and I look at the board state, and I realize if I take the top one, as it's oriented towards me, I can do the fail, the center objective, and the diamond in the top left of your screen. Um, and so I'm sitting here and I'm doing the math on this, and I'm thinking, I think I'm going to be able to take a really commanding lead here. Because I can take 1 in a million. Chopper and Callus are going to secure the middle position. Ezra's going to go up, wound fifth trooper for 2 momentum, and then run to the back point. And I'm going to score, uh, ideally two struggle, or potentially I have a 2 and 3 chance to score, 3 struggle on this scenario. And that top point becomes really relevant. So it lands in the middle position. And so Chopper and Callus are going to secure that. And then I go and I'm going to activate Ezra here. Now, I've healed Ezra back. I think he has 1 damage on him at this point. And at one point, I think he had 4
Mm-hmm.
or 5 with a uh, disarm and something else. And now he's sitting pretty. And so I have Ezra go. His fifth brother at this point is uh he's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's taken 6 damage. Um and so I'm sitting here thinking to myself, all right, fifth brother's got 6 damage on him. I need to do 5 more. Yeah, 5 more because he's base 9 with protection.
Yeah,
Um,
four, right?
but with protection, so I have to do 5. Oh,
No,
you're right. If it's
three
6,
plus. Yeah.
it's yeah. So, on Ezra's tree, I can do that in melee on an expertise. I get 1 auto, if with a single expertise,
Mm-hmm.
and then on 2 successes, I'm going to basically be able to do 4 damage and a pin. And so I just really need 1 natural crit on 7 dice and that. And I think I actually pay here for the commandos to do a plink 1 damage to him because I just want to make it absolutely secure. Because this is what I chose to do. I remember now. I paid 1 because if I roll a single expertise, or if I roll a single expertise, I will get 3 out of my tree plus the 1. And so I pay the force. I do that. I wound him. I get the 2 momentum from wounding him. I run to the point
Mm-hmm.
and I secure 3 in this scenario. And so he now rolls on his turn, and it goes to his uh, the diamond objective in the top left of the screen. And this is a really tough situation for him because he has to pull somebody who's going to be able to knock me off the middle. He has really nobody besides Fifth Brother who he could activate to get Ezra out of there. Um, but Ezra is against that wall, and on both sides of him there are actually gates, or low railings. So
Right.
he is unpushable from this position. He has 7 health, I think, left on him, and uh, so you have to wound him to stop him at
Mm-hmm.
this point. And again, if he gets Fifth Brother, the defender is the one who takes the tie in the tiebreak. Um, and so I believe he activates Fifth Brother at this point. Not Fifth Brother, sorry. He's looking, and he's deciding if he wants to activate his Dark Trooper escort. Yeah, that he put in reserve last turn,
Mm-hmm.
or his Death Trooper escort. And he's looking at the board state, trying to understand if with the position of the support he can get anywhere. But unfortunately, all of his supports are wounded. And so there's really not a position he can get them in. And he's starting to calculate what other options he can do here. And I remember in this point, I'm sitting here and I remember feeling like, I think I have won. Um, I think we're in a dire situation for him, and I think I'm going to do it. And so, if I remember correctly, here he is activating the Dark Trooper. He does a dash to here off of the Dark Trooper's actions. I think
Mm-hmm.
he passes on doing a dash from anybody else, because
Yeah,
his
because he
supports.
can. Yeah, he can choose himself.
I think
Or
he chooses somebody else
oh
and himself, actually. No,
uh no, he can choose himself or
yeah,
galactic supporting unit.
yeah. So he chooses himself,
Yeah.
and he dashes to here. He's now going to decide and do a tactical advance up the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he places himself up the ladder. and he is now going to try to hunt to try to take that position off of Ezra. And so to do this, he is going to need to do his top row and get 5 successes, I think, which is
Hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7. So if he gets 5 successes on this attack with his focus and sharpshooter, which is 8 dice into Ezra,
Nine,
he is going
actually.
to, pardon?
Nine
Oh, nine
dice.
dice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's got 9 dice and he needs to get 5 successes out of it. And if he
Hmm.
does that, he's going to be able to wound Ezra and reposition onto the point. And I only rolled, I think I rolled one
Oh,
block and one
yeah.
expertise,
Yep.
which blocks 2 here for him, and it leaves him with 2. And at
Hmm.
that point, he doesn't have it. Now, again, this is this amazing point of callous insurance. I had 3 fails in that roll. If he
Mm.
had a better roll
Yep.
with more hits, I could have just spent a force and rerolled 3 dice with Scoundrel, Spectre, Rebel. And it's such a nice insurance policy at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and so he does a few points of damage. I think it was just 2 or 3 damage, and I flip, and it's the middle position here, and it's the Rebel Commandos, who at this point I'm going to basically secure 4, and I'm going to win the game.
There you go.
And that is the GT final.
Yeah. And so that's why so I stepped out like uh I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes after you had the situation where you talked to the judge there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I get, the Wi-Fi was spotty in the hotel. I was like, I'm gonna go to this spot, check on my messages for a few minutes, and then I'll come back to be able to watch the rest of the game. And I came back and it had been like done for 5 minutes. I
Yeah,
was
I
like, oh,
remember.
oops.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, with how I like to play my second struggles, sometimes if I get a first one, they go quick. That one went
Mm,
exceptionally quick. And then the third struggle went also exceptionally quick. For me, it was, 2 activations because unfortunately his activation really wasn't able to swing it back.
yeah,
Um,
and that's where like especially when Sabotage Showdown came out, I found with that Kenobi Mall team that there were lots of times where I'd win struggle one, but I'd have such good board position at that point because I had units who had crossed the board that I could go for struggle two
mm-hmm,
reasonably,
mm-hmm,
um, and was ending up winning them. So I haven't practiced, I guess, the art of of kind of conceding struggle two and really prepping for struggle three. Uh, I think, and this is where I think we get into kind of thinking more activations ahead.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in it. It has served me really well in a lot of games. I actually lost to Donovan's father Ryan because I got trapped in second struggle where against him he got 2 points. And so my rule in my head is if you get 3 or 4, I'm sacking the struggle. I don't think I'm gonna win it back. And he got 2 points, and I remember being like, well, maybe I can win one and so forth here. And I let it go back and forth and let it go back and forth, but I was choosing not to wound his units. So I was like taking 2 points, but then not wounding anybody. And Ryan's position was actually I could have just wounded him and would have started winning the second struggle and probably would have been able to um take it into. And I actually skidded my way through it, and because of that, I actually lost units in second, and then lost units in third, and lost the whole game.
Right.
And so in this one, it was sort of a perfect storm scenario of, oh, cool, I can second struggle in two, and just move straight into this Ezra play I've been setting up since the beginning of the game when I matched him against Fifth Brother and wanted to do this kill to get the 2 momentum and secure me the win.
Mm-hmm.
When
Um, it,
if it had been a scenario where I could have gotten a secondary for it, I would have done it as well and gotten the struggles there or the struggle tracker over too. So
yeah, and that what you're talking about is exactly my kind of my worry about um well, no, I guess it's the other way around. I was going to say my worry about letting struggle 2 go too long if you're on the wrong end of the kind of attrition side of things.
Yeah. So against Ryan, I actually think one of my fears is if what I'm hypothesizing becomes a norm in the game where people sack two, there is an incredible character to stop the tech of sacking two, which is Hera. Because if
Mhm.
Hera activates when sacking two and you're trying to set up characters for three, her heals counter those setups in a big way.
Right.
And it's a real pain. And so what's cool in the game is that character exists, and if what I believe is sort of could become the norm settles in, I think her stock is going to rise as a character to counter that play specifically that way, which is like an exciting part of the meta of like a character that I think right now is deemed sort of not to be at the same tier of everyone else. If what I'm hypothesizing is a strong sort of play becomes more in vogue, she's going to swing back into the meta in a big way, especially
Right.
in scenarios like Sabotage Showdown, where attrition is really big from the first struggle, which is the first struggle is always long, characters take a lot of damage. Her stock will really go up if that mission's in vogue, and we have a lot of people trying to sack second to win 1 and 3.
Hmm.
So I think it's a cool counter option that exists in the meta.
Yeah. And yeah, I know that when she was first revealed, people were kind of down on her, and I did see that ability as kind of a very interesting kind of light side mirror to the Long Live the Empire
Mm-hmm.
abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and talking to Ryan during the tournament there, he actually, because him and his son play a lot, that's where they've gotten so much practice, and they actually played the basically the match that was their top 4 game a few times at home. And he said, because I was interested in this, the way people paired, like basically who people paired with Kanan, because it was
Mm-hmm.
different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
um, and he was saying that he started losing in that matchup, and then he swapped to Hera, and then he started winning again. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and I mean it'd be hard to delve into that when it's coming from practice games, but just the way that Hera can mess up the game plan for your opponent like that.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting for her. In my game against Ryan, I lost because he was doing that. And so I think he really teched into it. And again, if you're sacking second struggle and the other person's taking their time, they can spend the momentum because they know they're going to win it eventually, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a good strat. And that's one of the joys right now is that there's a lot, I think, of hidden layers within the game that people aren't appreciating yet.
Mm-hmm. And what was another thought from kind of the outsider's perspective was, everyone's talking about how these revenge lists are kind
Mm-hmm.
of the counter to Empire.
Yep.
So it was really interesting to see Donovan basically make his way through those lists, which were very popular in the top 8, with Empire, which is exactly what apparently they're countering. Um, do you do you think you kind of have any inklings into what he might be doing different than other Empire players that is kind of helping him approach these revenge lists?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's good. I think he's smart.
That
Um,
helps.
I think he chooses to wound things in the right order, which is,
Mm-hmm.
in this scenario, he wounded the rebel commandos early. Often the commandos lead up the board,
Mm-hmm.
and when he wounded them, I didn't get an attack back
Right.
because he took them out. Leia couldn't get in range, and Kanan couldn't get in range. and I think that's the right that's the smart play in this scenario, um, and that's the sort of damage you're looking to do. Um, I had that experience where players who wounded the commandos early were players who generally I had a tough time with,
Hmm.
versus if you chose to wound Chopper or a Callus or someone else who ran up early, I was often going to be able to get more back out of that game from it. Um, I will say that I think that was a good call on his part. I think otherwise, Vader can take a hit back,
Hmm.
in a big way. One of the things we see so much Iden play, and there's so much praise for her power. And I love Iden Versio as a character. I love her book. I was really happy when she got announced for the game. I enjoy playing her a lot. Um, but she is frail on the defense,
Hmm.
and she can't really take a hit back. And when you look at his list right here, the weakest one in his list is the Stormtrooper Sergeant, who you really don't even want to bother shooting most of the time because he's probably just capping 1 point by himself and it doesn't really matter too much. But you've got protection on 3 of his 6 characters. And Gideon has a pretty good tree at turning off enemy incoming damage, which is great. Um, and disciplined on the Dark Trooper or Death Trooper expert is also a really good way to prevent attacks coming into him, because he's going to be able to
Hmm.
position himself afterwards and potentially take points all on his own. And Vader can take a wallop, so I think he's bringing a list here that has the aggression, but also can sort of you know has the armor built in to take the counterpunch. And I think
Right.
when you see a lot of people who are playing the sort of idling, the scouts, those ISF, they're going to die, right? You're not probably going to win Gideon because you want to avoid his clapback, but Iden and the ISFs are probably going to get shot up because they're both pretty frail. And
Hmm.
so I think he's taking the tankier side of Empire and benefiting from it. And I think it's smart plays.
Nice. So, uh, I noticed in this match as well. I think it happened in our practice game as well, where partway through the game you kind of looked at Chopper and you're like, he's kind of my almost dead activation. Um, so you're okay just kind of having him go when the struggle was locked, saving Ezra, who's gonna have more of an impact for the start of the next struggle. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think Chopper is a really good tech piece, especially in comparison um, to Kanan, or no, to Kanan, to Zeb. And I'll go over that in a second. But specifically, I love activating Chopper in those scenarios where the struggle is going to be secured because his general activation is not going to be worth a lot. He's not often going to do a lot of damage. At best, you're going to, in sort of a dream scenario, you like mayhem somebody into potentially wounding them and then getting to do a dash or reposition. But like, I don't know how many Chopper games I've played. I've never once lived that scenario. Um, but what is nice is that when you're securing a position with him, that came up in this game, if he can turn on, is that one of ours where he can't be shot by range attack, suddenly helps a ton because he basically has invisibility, which is a huge help. And it means that on more meaningful activations where you need to swing points and secure stuff, he's going to be able to activate. And then on the counter side, I know there's a lot of talk between him and Zeb,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a really firm position on this. I think at this point, which is that uh, they have this. Zeb has slightly better defense from range attacks because he rolls 4 dice and gets on 1 expertise. He gets 2 blocks. Chopper only gets 1, and then on 2 and 3 he gets 2. But also Chopper, a lot of times you can control, doesn't get shot, and when you don't get shot, your defense dice don't matter because you're not getting shot.
Yeah.
Um, and in melee, he swings more dice than Zeb, which is really nice. And his melee tree, he has crits on both his attack and defense on 1 expertise. Zeb on 1 expertise has only double hits, and he actually doesn't get a crit from his expertise until he gets 3 at range and 2 in melee. And then on top of that, Zeb doesn't get a push until second success, and only gets 2 pushes on 4. Um, and whereas Chopper gets 2 pushes on 3 and gets a crit on 1 expertise. And so all of a sudden, he has a lot more ability to dislodge people from points and really push them from position. He has a pretty good chance of being alive because he is immune to pin, immune to disarms. You know his dice are probably going to be good, and he has protection. Whereas Zeb, who has I think one more health than him, yeah, has one more health than him, really actually has less functional health because if it's 2 attacks, protection is going to add up and you're going to save more. And so for me, Chopper is the piece I really like. He has better output. He's generally can have better defense by not getting shot at. Um, and overall I find him has better tech, especially because he has access to jump, which is such a clean
Mm.
ability to get you on different elevations and change stuff when there aren't ingresses, whereas you're stuck with dash and then advance um, with Zeb, where you need to have an ingress point somewhere. So after this tournament, I really walked away thinking my call on Chopper was the right one, and it has come up a number of times in a big way, and I like it a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I have again in my analysis, I did notice that that yeah, it was in the three top four lists that had Kanan, they also had Ezra and Chopper. So they were also leaning the same way as you, where other than of course Ryan, he had full specters.
Yep.
But the other list, which was Kanan Mando, again including Ezra and Chopper and Sabine, I think in the Mando list. Um, but but yeah, so you're probably onto something. Everyone's kind of or the those other two are leaning that way as well. I
Yep.
was surprised. I haven't taken a super close look, or hadn't taken a super close look at Chopper and the dice that he throws. So yeah, when that came up and I scrolled down, I was like, "Wait, Chopper's throwing 8 dice in melee?"
Yeah, man. Chopper slaps in melee, and the only thing is his damage is really capped, right? Like
Right.
your peak damage is 6.
True.
I guess technically it's 7 if you get 4 expertise.
Right.
Um, but it's not he's not going to hit a walloping punch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he's got good control with mayhem, where you can put out some nice conditions. If you get it for free on your chart, that's amazing. 7 damage plus some conditions is really nice. And then and he's got his rocket boots, which is really useful. I like he's really grown. And actually, my chopper model I really love. I actually didn't build him on the jetpack base. He's just on his little feet on the ground, and then I
Right.
actually made blood trails behind him, as if he's just an imperial ship, just running away from after successfully
Cause
dispensing of some imperial problems, if you will.
causing mayhem as he does.
As he does. I believe he is the second highest murder count in all of Star Wars. So
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, are there any other kind of closing thoughts that you'd like before we finish up?
no, I mean, I really appreciate everything you do for the community, Dylan. It's really lovely to have these videos, and I appreciate you letting me come on to talk about this and walk through my decision making and thinking through this game and the game as a whole. And I really love Shatterpoint. It's a ton of fun, and I think these GTS have been a big hit all over. We're seeing a lot of them go off, which is really awesome. And I was overjoyed to be able to win one, and I'm looking forward to going to LVO to play some more, and hopefully getting to see you commentate your final table game where you get your win.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. Also, thanks back to you because, as far as I could tell, you were very instrumental in keeping these consistent tournaments going up in Vancouver, TOing a lot of those, a lot of the ones in 2023, and having that consistent thing where everyone knows that month after month there's going to be a big tournament. Um, Definitely helps get the community going.
Yeah, I appreciate that. 2023 was a lot of work to get tournaments every month, but they kept selling out. People kept showing up, which was really lovely. And now we have
Mm-hmm.
3 TOs besides myself who run Shatterpoint,
Yeah,
And so a big shout out to Tom Lee and now Alex, our new TO, which is just a delight to have in the community, and allows me to just sort of keep working with the shop to make sure that we still have an X-wing event every month, and Shatterpoint, and a Kill Team event that they run, as well as a Song of Ice and Fire. And it's just great that most Saturdays in a month you're going to be able to go to Stronghold and pick up a game of a mini game you're going to enjoy playing, which is just super awesome, and it's a delight. But yeah,
for sure. All
cool.
right.
Well, all right. Thanks for having me. I am
Yeah,
gonna go get to bed. So you have a lovely night, Dylan,
me as well.
and thanks
You
everyone for
too.
watching.
Yeah, and subscribe for more.